Pluto, planet or not? Before we can answer this question, we need to know what the word planet is for, and that takes us back to the ancient Greeks who called Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the Moon, and the Sun planets. Basically, if it moved across the sky and was bright, it was a planet. This is a terrible start for the word because 1, it excludes Earth from the list, and 2, it groups wildly different things together. But the Greeks couldn't know how different the Moon was from Saturn because the best technology they had to observe the universe was sadly limited. It would take several thousand years until the industrious Dutch made the first telescopes and astronomy became much more interesting. Astronomers could now confidently rearrange the solar system, an elegant scientific advance that no one could possibly object to, and reclassify its parts, dropping the Sun and the Moon from the list of planets and adding Earth. Now, if it orbited the Sun, it was a planet. As time went on and telescopes got better and better, each new century brought with it the discovery of a new planet, which brings us to this familiar solar system, 9 planets orbiting 1 star. Looking at this model makes people wonder, why do astronomers want to ditch Pluto? The problem is pictures like this in textbooks are lies. Well, not lies exactly, but unhelpful. They give the impression that the planets are similar-ish in size and evenly-ish spaced, but the reality couldn't be more different. Here, dear Terrans, is our home planet Earth, and this is Jupiter next to it at the correct scale. Rather bigger than you probably thought. If we take this diagram and adjust for the correct sizes of the planets, it looks like this. Unless you're watching the video in full-screen HD mode, you might not be even able to see Pluto. So, size differences are vast, and Pluto is the smallest by far. But it's not just small for a planet, it's also smaller than 9 moons. Triton, Europa, our own moon, Io, Callisto, Titan, and Ganymede. Even if you show the correct relative sizes, the distances are still a problem. Think about it, if Jupiter was this close to Earth, it wouldn't look like a dot in the night sky, but would be rather overwhelming. So it must be really far away, which makes drawing it to scale rather a challenge. If you want the length of a piece of paper to represent the distance from Mercury to Pluto, then giant Jupiter would be the size of a dust mite on that page, and Pluto a bacterium. But excluding Pluto from the Planet Club just for being tiny and small isn't reason enough, and quickly brings out the Pluto defenders. In order to understand what Pluto really is, we need to first discuss a planet you've never heard of, Ceres. Back in 1801, astronomers found a new planet in the huge gap between Mars and Jupiter. It was a small planet, but they loved it anyway and named it Ceres. The next year, astronomers found another small planet in the same area and named it Pallas. A few years later, they found a third one, Juno, and then, funnily enough, a fourth one, Vesta. And for several decades, children learned the 11 planets of the solar system. But astronomers kept finding more and more of these objects and became increasingly uncomfortable calling them planets because they were much more like each other than the planets on either side. So a new category was born. Asteroids in the asteroid belt. And the tiny planets were relabeled, which is why you've never heard of them. And it was a good decision too, as astronomers have now found hundreds of thousands of asteroids, which would be a lot for a kid to memorize if they were all still planets. Back to Pluto. It was discovered in 1930, making it the then 9th planet. First estimates put Pluto about the size of Neptune, but with more observations that was revised down, and down, and down. While Pluto shrank, astronomers started to find other similar objects orbiting in the same zone. Sound familiar? While school kids kept memorizing the 9 planets, some astronomers grew uneasy about including Pluto because the size estimates continued to shrink. They learned that Pluto is made mostly of ice, and they continue to find lots and lots of icy objects at the edge of the solar system just like Pluto. This problem could be ignored as long as no one found an ice ball bigger than Pluto, which is exactly what happened in 2006 with the discovery of Eris. Once again, astronomers recategorized the solar system and grouped these distant objects, including Pluto, into a new area called the Kuiper Belt. And that's the story of Pluto, a miscategorized planet that finally found its home, just like Ceres. But this story is really less about Pluto than it is about realizing the word planet isn't very helpful. The first 4 planets are nothing at all like the next 4, so it's even a little weird to group these 8 together, which is why they often aren't and are separated into terrestrial planets and gas giants. And now that we have telescopes that can see planets around stars not our own, and we found rogue planets drifting in empty space, and brown dwarfs, objects that blur the very line between planet and star, the word planet becomes even less clear. So as we increase our knowledge of the universe, the category of planet will probably continue to evolve, or possibly fall out of favor entirely. But for the time being, the best way to categorize the stuff in our solar system is into 1 star, 8 planets, 4 terrestrial, 4 gas giants, the asteroid belt, and the distant Kuiper Belt, home to Pluto.
The Juno spacecraft has just accomplished something extraordinary. It entered the orbit around Jupiter and will get closer to the giant planet than ever before. The folks at NASA certainly have reason to celebrate, as you see them doing there. This journey has taken almost 5 years. CNN's Paul Vercamen reports on what scientists are hoping to learn.
Proving esteemed scientists have humor, 3 Lego figurines are hitching a ride aboard: the god Jupiter, his wife Juno, and the astronomer Galileo. and no plastic or paint. This trio is made of the finest space-grade aluminum. Paul Verkammen, CNN, Pasadena, California.
Planet. And in case you were wondering why the name Juno for this mission, well, according to Roman mythology, Jupiter, the king of the gods, hid himself behind a veil of clouds, and it was only Juno, his wife, who would be able to peer through the veil to reveal Jupiter's true nature. It seems a fitting name for the mission. The Juno spacecraft is set to begin its orbit with the planet Jupiter on July 4th.
You see Jupiter and its Galilean moons. It's like a little mini solar system. The last image that we took before we turned off our camera on approach. In all of history, we've never really been able to see the motion of any heavenly body against another. To me, it's very significant because we're finally able to see with real video, real pictures, this motion, and we've only been able to imagine it up till today. To me, it's very significant because we're finally able to see with real video, real pictures, this motion, and we've only been able to imagine it up till today.
Following a 5-year, 1.8 billion-mile journey, NASA's Juno spacecraft safely entered Jupiter's orbit last night. The highly anticipated achievement sets the stage for a 20-month orbit around the biggest planet in the solar system to learn how and where it formed. Well, for more details, we're going to cross now to Marina Portnaya.
So this mission required precise positioning and exact timing, a technique known as orbital insertion. According to NASA, it involved firing a rocket engine to slow Juno once it got to the right location at the right second. The risky maneuver began last night around 11:18 p.m. Eastern Time. Juno soared through the vacuums of space at more than 160,000 miles per hour. NASA says if the timing was off, Juno could have ended up flying into space at speeds too great to ever return. In the next 20 months, Juno is scheduled to make 37 orbits around Jupiter, concluding with a dive into the planet where it will be crushed and vaporized. Now, Juno's suicidal dive is designed to prevent microbes from Earth from inadvertently contaminating Jupiter's ocean-bearing moon, Europa. NASA expects Juno to be in position for its first close-up images of Jupiter on August 27th.
Despite being twice the size of all the other planets in our solar system combined, we haven't truly seen Jupiter yet. We haven't truly seen Jupiter yet. We haven't truly seen Jupiter yet.
And NASA has announced that the administration's Kepler Space Telescope has discovered the single largest collection of planets outside of our solar system. The Kepler mission verified over 1,200 new planets nearing human beings towards an answer on whether or not we're alone in the universe. RT correspondent Manuel Rapolo has the details on this historic find.
If you've heard of the term exoplanet, it refers to any planet out there in space orbiting any star other than the sun. The term is actually short for extrasolar planet, and while there have been hundreds of these planets found in recent years, believe it or not, the first confirmed discovery of an exoplanet was only 24 years ago in 1992, which is why this latest announcement by NASA is so historic. NASA's Kepler mission has discovered the largest collection of planets ever. The Kepler spacecraft, which is actually an ultra-advanced telescope, has found a record-breaking 1,284 new planets outside of the solar system. The announcement...
This is supposedly the Curiosity. You know that little carrito, that little car on Mars? Not on Mars. I think it's a little bit closer. Watch this.
So I keep digging a little bit deeper, and I finally get underneath this cloud cover here, and a few images pop up. And I say, oh, images, what are they? Well, this is what you got, which I'm sure that looks familiar to you, right? Looks just like the pictures they give us of Mars. So I'm just kind of creeping around here and definitely noticing the same kind of undulation changes and same kind of rock, same kind of dirt. Only thing that's missing is that nice little red tint that they pay somebody $150,000 a year to put on there. Is that right? Whose orange Hummer is this? Okay, that looks like a NASA symbol. Well, let's dig a little further because I can't really see anything on here other than certainly looks like a NASA symbol. And I can't read that. Tried. Cameras set up, tents, ATVs, food. They've been there a while. It's not a one-day trip. Got their antennas set up out in the middle of nowhere in Greenland. Another ATV, a leveler equipment. So I'll keep kind of going through here and see if it. What the? Yeah. So, I think I found out where Mars is, guys. It's just about 1,000 miles north of me. Not quite the distance that NASA says, but I can't find anybody who's in charge of this. They must be hiding behind these rocks. Oh no, there they are out in front of everybody, just standing there. Lovely. Clown number 1, clown number 2, and clown number 3. This thing's just driving around taking pictures. Unbelievable. Actually, if you ask me, it's quite believable. But what do you think? Are they sending scientists up on ATVs to practice on the rover in a remote island in Greenland? I doubt that, highly. But I did see something cool on the site. You could send Curiosity a postcard. So I was like, sweet.
With Curiosity, we land in something that actually looks very Mars-like, but it also looks Earth-like with those mountains in the background there, these deeply dissected pyramidal mountain ranges, and it just looks a lot like what you see out in the Mojave Desert. It's really cool. And so it kind of makes you feel at home.
Curiosity's primary mission is to search for signs of life on the planet most similar to Earth.